Well, welcome to this week's live, and we're going to be working on these really neat looking pine cones right here. And this is a pine cone branch. These pine cones are actually made out of fondant, and the pine needles, they are made out of floral tape. So it's really exciting. It's really neat. It's a perfect decoration for a winter cake. So let's see here. There we go. So we're going to be working on these. And we'll do some Q&A afterwards, just so we can build up some people watching. We have a couple of people watching now. And so I'm not going to do a Q&A yet because I want to make sure that I have a decent amount of group. Okay, so why don't we get started? We're going to do this tutorial on the snow cones. So I'm going to turn my screen down so we can see my workstation. There we go. And I want to make sure that you can see the area that I'm working on. Okay, now let's see here. Now we have our setup. Oh, all right, so this is the mold that we're going to use. And this is a Katie Sue Designs mold. And I use this all the time. You can make pine cones without the mold, and I'll show you how to do that. It's just that it will not look the same, and it will not look as authentic as the mold. And this is a fabulous mold to use for the pine cones. And you can either make them on a branch, or you can make them separate. You don't have to make them on a branch. They can be just by themselves, where you can just place them on cakes or cupcakes. And it's just a really great tool to use, a great mold for winter designs. All right, so I'm going to start off. We're going to put this aside for a second. And we are going to do mold. We're going to do pine cones with stems on them. Now, I created some already ahead of time, and I created these last night because they need to dry overnight. When you do half of them, they need to dry overnight, and I'll show you once we go through here. So that I have dried those, and you need to dry half of the pine cone before you put the other half on. So when I start out with my pine cone mold, and you want to get some cornstarch and dump out the excess. And what this does is it helps the fondant from sticking. And I am using brown fondant, and it is a 50-50. It's actually modified by Tylose powder. So you want to make sure that it's fairly decently firm. You don't want it to be soft at all. All right, so we're going to take a piece of this. And I'm going to place it into our mold. And I have a cosmetic sponge that I use. And you want to make sure that you get every little nook and cranny. So you want to, now this has a little divot in it, and we don't want that. So I'm going to add a tiny bit more. And we want it to be fairly flush with the top of the mold. There we go. Okay. And I'm going to do that with all three pieces. And we'll use this one right here. I just kind of estimate it for how much you're going to need. And then I just cut off the excess. I have this little scraper here that any excess I just trim off. You want to make sure that it's just flush with the mold. There we go. And then we have one more to go. And I think maybe a little bit more than that we'll use. Okay, so we'll get a little bit more and we'll put them in here in this mold. And like I said, this is a Katie Sue design mold. You can find it on her website at katiesue.com. Katie with a Y, K-A-T-Y, Sue Designs. I love her molds, and I have several of them. They're very authentic. This is actually the Nicholas Lodge collection of the Katie Sue Design molds. Okay, now we are going to make the stems, and we're going to make the large one and the middle one. We're going to use a 20 gauge wire, and the small one we're going to use a 26 gauge wire, and I'm using green, and so I'm going to cut it in half. Floral wire is typically 14 inches long. I'm going to cut it at 7.5. So let's see here. So let's see. All right, now set that aside. All right, so we're going to start out with the one. Now we're going to make a bud at the top of this, and I'll show you how to do that. You want to get brown floral wire. I'm sorry, brown floral tape, and you want to cut it in half. You want it to be half width. And how I do that, I have a ribbon cutter, or actually a floral tape cutter, and you can use scissors. You don't have to do it this way. You take out a piece of your floral wire or floral tape. I keep calling it floral wire. I don't know why. All right, so we'll get out a piece of the tape and we'll put it in our cutter. And if I can get it to come through here. There we go. There it is. And then you just pull it through. And what that does is cut your floral tape in half. And it makes it so much easier to do. So you don't have to go all the way through with scissors. Okay. All right, so you're going to get some floral tape that's half width, and you just stretch it out to activate the gumminess on it. And then we're going to come around 5 times. First, you want to hook it up, and then you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you get your pliers, your craft pliers, and then you just want to bend it down, and you want to make sure it's nice and tight. And then we're going to go around 10 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then we're just going to bring it all the way down. All right, so now that we have a bud here, we want to get our edible glue and Going to place a little bit of edible glue on the bud all the way around. You can use edible glue, you can use piping gel, egg whites, any of those would work. And then we're going to put this bud about halfway down and we're going to push it in. And you want to push it in. Doesn't have to go in all the way, just enough so when it dries, it'll be in contact. All right, and then we're going to do another one, and this is going to be for the middle one. So we're going to get another piece of our floral tape that's half width. Stretch it out. And 1, 2, 3, whoops, going 4, 5. And then we take our pliers, bend it down so we have a hook. And then we're going to go around 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then we're going to go down. Go down the stem. Okay. Now we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to get a little bit of edible glue. And going to put it right in the center. All right. And then we're going to do one more. And we're going to use the 26 gauge for the small one. So we have our floral wire. Oops, I don't need this big of a piece. So I'm going to cut it down a little bit. And we're going to anchor it. And then go around 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to bend it. Make a hook. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then we go down. And if you don't if you run out of tape and say you still have a little bit left, that's okay, because that's going to be covered up anyway. You're not going to see that. And you want to put a little bit of edible glue on it. Place it in the cavity. I don't know if you saw earlier, this mold, there's little stems here. There's a little cavity there, and that's for the stem. It's to place the stem. Now, I typically like to give these a few minutes in the freezer. So I think I'm going to do that. And while they are in the freezer, I'll show you something else that we're going to make. Placing them in the freezer helps them pop out a lot easier. All right, so now we're going to, while they're in the freezer, we're going to make the pine needles. And they are a lot of fun. So now we're going to get green floral. You want a long length because we're going to be twisting it. And when you twist it, it shortens it. And I'm only going to show you a couple of them just so you get the idea of how to use them. So we're going to make a half width floral tape. Pull it through. And then you can get scissors and cut the rest of it. All right. So now what we're going to do, we're going to stretch it out so we can activate the gumminess. Whoops. All right, that one broke a little bit. I stretched it out too powerful. That's okay. It doesn't have to be exactly 3 feet. All right, now we're going to take an end of this and we're going to get it started. We're going to twist it around. Twist, 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 twist. There. Okay, then we're going to continue to twist around. And you want to twist and pull slightly at the same time. So twist and pull. And it's going to start doing swirly, helicopter-y kind of things, but that's okay. That's what it's supposed to do. And what I usually do, because with this pine set right here, I have several different ones. I'll do several of these at the same time, and then I'll come back to them and actually make the pine needles. But I'm going to show you just one, and then we'll go back to the others. You want to be careful that you don't loosen it up anywhere. You want to maintain that tightness as you're pulling and twisting. Pull and twist. Pull and twist. Sometimes it'll get all knotty, and if it gets all knotty, it's going to be kind of delicate. So you want to be careful with that. Okay, so we're gonna twist this over this way. Makes it easier. Okay. You just have to get your position correct. Ugh. I think it was better this way. Okay. And what I like to do is kind of let it go behind me. And then this way it's out of the way. And this is kind of like a monotonous a little bit process here, but it's a process that needs to be done if you're going to be making these pine needles. And just twist it around. Almost there. All right. Now you can see why I'm just going to demonstrate one right now, because it takes a little time to make these. And you don't want to be sitting there staring at me just twisting floral wire for 20 minutes. All right, so we are at the end. Here. Now, you can see sometimes you'll see areas that are loose, so you just want to give it a good twist. Make sure all your areas are pretty tight. Then let's finish this one. Okay. Then you're going to put it around 2 fingers. You can use 1 finger or 2 fingers. It depends on how big you want your your pine needles, but we're going to use 2 fingers. So you just want to wrap it around and just keep wrapping the whole entire thing around those 2 fingers until you get to the end. Just keep wrapping around. There you go. So now we're at an end. So then we want to get a piece of 26 gauge floral wire, just a small piece. Let's see, let's cut off maybe a couple inches, 2-3 inches. Okay, and then we're going to wrap it around the loop and then tie one end And then you're just going to twist the end, just like a twist tie. You want to twist it all the way down. Now what you're going to do is you're going to get half width brown floral tape, stretch it out a little bit, and then we're going to wrap it around the stem here. So we're going to get a little piece right here, and we're going to wrap it around. You want to start out just a little above where the stem meets. And you wrap it around, and you go down the stem. There you go. You can use brown or you can use green. It doesn't matter because most of it's going to be hidden anyway. Then you're going to cut this right here. Well, actually, you're going to cut it across. So you want to just get maybe the tip, cut that off, and you have these pine needles, and you want to stretch them out. Just kind of spread them out a little bit. And you have some pine needles here. Aren't they cute? Okay, then to give them a frosty look, so they look wintry, you're going to get some sanding sugar and white sanding sugar, or if you don't have that available, you can use regular granulated sugar. And I like to just put some in a bowl. And then you're going to get your edible glue. And you're just going to put the edible glue on the tips. Okay, then you want to spread these out because you don't want them to get stuck together. Okay, and then you just dip into the edible or into the sanding sugar. And look at that, isn't that neat? There you have some winter pine needles. And then we'll add them to the branch. All right, so I'm just going to set these aside, and then I'm going to go to the freezer and take out our mold. We are back with our mold. Now I'm going to turn the mold upside down and just kind of like give it a stretch. And by giving it a stretch, it helps the pine needles come out. And voila, there you have it. Now, I have a fluffy brush that you can brush a little bit. There's some cornstarch on it, but that's okay. It'll come off. Okay, so now these 3 pine needles, they're the half sizes. They need the other end on it. They need to dry overnight. So you have to set these aside and let them dry overnight. So I'm going to set these over here. And in the meantime, I have the ones that I made yesterday. And these are dry. They dried overnight, so we're going to use them. All right, now we're going to use this mold again, and we're going to make our other half. Now, I'm only going to do one at a time here. All right, so let's put our modified fondant into the mold. You want to make sure that it's nice and smooth. Press it in really well, and then you get your cosmetic sponge. And you just give it a good press. Now I do have excess, so I'm going to just scrape that out. And you just want to make sure it's nice and flush. And you want to get every little divot in there. This is a very realistic mold. That's what I love about it. Okay, so now the reason why I'm only doing one at a time is because we need to do a little twisting and bending of the mold, and I like doing that with just one at a time. All right, so now we're going to get some edible glue, and we're going to put the edible glue all over this character here. You want to make sure you get all areas. Okay, now we're going to put the piece that we had let dry overnight, and we're going to place that on top. And you want to just press very gently down until you feel like you're in a good position. And then you just give it another little press. You don't want to press too hard because even though this dried overnight, they are still a little soft. And then you're going to turn the mold upside down and bend it out to release the other piece. And there you have it. There you have the two pieces. So now you have a three-dimensional pine cone. Now the piece that I just made, that piece has to dry overnight also. So let me just get a little bit of the cornstarch out of there. And I like to let it dry overnight, I like to use my egg crate. And then this way it doesn't crush down any of the pine needle pieces or the cones pieces. Okay, so we'll do that to the other two. And then I'm going to show you some coloring. We'll do the middle one next. If anyone has asked any questions, I'll have to look at it after I'm finished this demonstration when we go to our Q&A, because I can't see any questions right now, if anyone has any comments or questions. So I will get to them when we're finished this demonstration. All right. So I have a little bit of extra. So we're going to take that off. Okay. All right, then we're going to add a little bit of glue. And when you're finished with this mold, because the glue, we're adding the glue outside the mold here also, you want to make sure that you wash it with soapy water, hot soapy water, just to get all that glue off. I do the glue on the outside also because it makes a nice secure little seam. So we place this on top, get it in position, press it down a little bit, turn it upside down, stretch out the mold, and press out your guy. And there you have it. Give them a little brushing. And then we're going to let that guy dry overnight. Even though we're letting these dry overnight, I'm going to come back to them, and I'm going to, the side that has already dried overnight, I'll show you how to dust them to give them a little bit more realistic color. I can't put the dust on this side because it's too soft, but I'll use the side that has already dried overnight. And when I dry them on their seams so as not to press down on the pine needles, or the pine cone, actually. All right, so we're going to do our last guy. A little bit more in there. Okay, nice and pressed in there. Make sure it's flush. A little bit of edible glue. Get your other little piece that's already dried overnight. Press it down a little bit, not too hard, just enough to make contact. Turn it upside down, stretch out your mold to release. And there you have it. Okay, and brush off a little of that cornstarch. And we're going to let this guy dry overnight also. Now, before I get back to them and show you how to put everything together, I'm going to show you how you can make a pine cone without the mold. Now, it's not going to be the same, but you can kind of get a general idea. All right, so let's condition this guy. Get him into a nice ball. Okay, so we're going to get him into a cone shape. Okay, so that's kind of a cone shape right there. And then we're going to get a pair of scissors. And you want to use a small pair of scissors. I have these spring rods that are perfect for it. And then from the top on down, you want to pinch it and squeeze, and pinch and squeeze, and pinch and squeeze, pinch and squeeze. Just go all the way around, pinch and squeeze. And you can even do this to the top. And you don't want to do it in a row. You want to do alternating spots. And then you can go below, pinch and squeeze, pinch and squeeze, pinch and squeeze. And you just want to keep going all the way around. And you want to go all the way around. And then when you're finished, bring these up a little bit. Just kind of bring them up a little bit. They don't have to be completely up, but just up a little bit. And you can see that it's forming a pine cone. And if you don't have spring rod scissors, you can use any kind of scissors. I have but I would use a small pair. You have more control with a smaller pair. So you just go around. I mean, it makes a very nice cone. It's not quite as detailed as the mold. However, it does make a nice cone. And you can add as many little markings as you'd like, going all the way around. And then you just kind of not flatten them, but just kind of bring them up a little bit. So you have somewhat of a cone here. So if you'd like to do this without the mold, you certainly can. And then what you do for the stem, you just, let's see, a bigger piece. I have floral wire all over the place here. And then you just make your, you wrap it around 5 times, make your hook, wrap it around 10 times, and then down the pole or down the floral wire, and then you put a little bit of edible glue on it, and you just push it up into the cone. Okay, so you're basically doing the same thing, but you're just using a pair of scissors to make the pine cone instead of the mold. So see, it can be done. You can do it. All right, now I'm going to show you how you can color the pine cones. And I'm just going to show you the one side. Now, notice that these are brown, and these look, the finished product looks more gray. And I did use brown when I made these, and it's just the coloring that you use. So you want to start out using Super Pearl. This is Pearl Dust, Super Pearl Dust. And you get a little bit of that. And you want flat brushes. We're going to use Pearl Dust, and we're going to use gray. So you want to get a flat brush, not a rounded one. Going to put a little bit of Pearl Dust on it. And let's see which side. This is the side that's soft. So this is the side that has set overnight. So we're going to work on this side. And then you go against the grain. You just brush downward in this direction. And see how it gives it kind of a snowy look to it? Gives it a nice snowy look. You can put as little or as much as you want. If you want it to look more snowier, then you just add a little bit extra on there to give it the snowy tips. And then you would get a little bit of gray. This is Dove Gray. And if you don't have gray, you can get black petal dust and mix some cornstarch in. Oops, I didn't want to take out that much. And you just get some black cornstarch, I'm sorry, black color dust, and you mix cornstarch to it to get a gray. Okay, so then we're going to just dab a little bit of gray on there. And it just gives it more dimension. So you can see the difference from that side to this side. And using the Pearl Dust, it gives it a nice glistening look about it. Okay, so the last thing we're going to learn on here is how to put these together. Now, I'm not going to put too much because I only made one pine needles. I'm just going to give you the basic idea on putting these together. So you want to make several of these pine needles. They are just, let me see, I have here I have actually about 6, 7 here. So you want to make several of them to make your stem more realistic looking. Okay, so then you want to start out, we're going to use a, let me see, I'm going to use a 20 gauge wire, and you want to, the top of your stem, you want the smaller cones, and then you want to go to medium and then large at the bottom. So I'm not going to fully go through this because I did not make all of the pine needles that I wanted to make, but and that was for time purposes. Like we could be here for a couple hours doing that. So you want to get a 20 gauge wire, and I'm just going to put this pine needle right by here, right by the little guy. And then you want to use brown floral wire or floral tape. And you just spin it around. And you can open these up. And then normally I would go a little bit far down. And then right about here, I would put another set of pine needles. And then you just bend this out a little bit. You don't want to put it completely up against it. You want to have a little bit of a stem there. And then I'm going to bring this down. And then I usually would put another pine needle here. And then you can go to the big guy. And then you can go all the way down. So I mean, I know the stem doesn't look the same, but it's because we need it to make several of these. So when you're making them, you want to make several sets of these pine needles. And I would do about 2 of the pine cones of each size also. And then to make, that's what this one has right here. You have 2 large, 2 medium, and 2 small, and you have several pine needles to go along with it. And you just twist it around. And then to give your stem some more realistic look about them, you get a pair of scissors and you just make small cuts in random places. And it just makes it look like a real pine needle or pine cone stem. All right, so that is it. Let me just bring this up a little bit. Thank you so much for watching. And if anyone has any questions or comments, this is a really great winter cake design to put on some winter cakes. You can use them with the little snow babies and the snow penguins that we made last week. That would be great. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial today, and I will be talking to you soon. Bye for now.